everybody, welcome back to This Thing We're Doing, and in this episode, we'll be talking about One Punch Man, arguably one of the best animes out there. I'll leave it to my co-host, Nick. So Nick, what do you think of One Punch Man?
Well, Alan, I love this show. I think it might be one of my favorite animes of all time. One of my favorite shows of all time, I'll say. One of my favorite series. I think this is probably like one of the only shows that I've like kept up with as it's being like serialized, because as of this recording, season 3 still has not come out yet. So I decided to read the manga. And I mean, that was like 2 years ago, whatever. And I'm caught up with all the current events that are happening in this manga, or at least the one that's done by Yusuke Murata. You say your stuff, Alan. I want to hear what you have to say first, because I'm excited before I do my big lore dump and accidentally spoil everything about the production of this show.
Okay, yeah. So I piled a bunch of notes for One Punch Man. I really enjoyed watching One Punch Man. I'm a big fan, and I talked about every aspect about it. Well, not every, but the most significant ones especially. So first, for the synopsis, it's an anime about the indomitable everyman superhero going through the struggles of being too strong, and the plot acknowledges that One Punch Man, or Saitama, is incredibly strong, and that he kills all of his enemies in a single jab. So the plot itself cleverly maneuvers around to constantly create obstacles that constantly challenge him. At least this was the case in the beginning. Afterwards, when Saitama joined the Hero Association, that kind of stopped, and his main obstacle was just himself, generally. So what I did, which wasn't really wise, was compared to Invincible, another show that we reviewed on this channel. One Punch Man is kind of like Invincible, except it doesn't care about the civilians being impacted by the damage caused by heroes and enemies alike. So lives are pretty much insignificant, while Invincible emphasizes specifically on how an everyman might react or feel the destruction of their houses or, their environment. One Punch Man does not acknowledge that. It's all done through the perspective of hero, which isn't bad. I suppose it's more of a heroic bias that, oh yeah, we didn't see, we did it to save the world. Meanwhile, the death counter is a million, because let's say in the last few episodes of season 1, where a big alien ship annihilates an entire city district, actually the entire city A, and Survivor's story is briefly emphasized when the father saves his son from a debris pile, but other than that, most civilians are just wasted. They're seen as garbage by the perspective of the show, pretty much useless. So other than the plot, I'd like to say that it is beautifully animated, and what I enjoyed was stuff like rotoscoping of the Moomin Rider in episode 4, general fight scenes and their special effects, even if they seem pretty cliche for most anime media. They were really beautifully animated. You could feel the weight of each effect, when someone punches someone. And speaking of Saitama, I enjoyed how the animation portrayed his facial expressions. Sometimes he would have basic expressions when he's, feeling lackadaisical, not serious at all, but it would only become emphasized when he's serious, or when he's fighting, or when he's teaching Janus about something. And regarding his design is very simple, right? He's bald, he has basic facial expression in contrast to other characters when he's not serious. He has relatively basic colors, a mix of red, yellow, white, and even then, these are pretty bright colors which are meant to emphasize, where your eyes would look at. So a very clever, simple yet clever design. In a way, the show is pretty simple but clever, even in the plot, because the plot is about a guy who could just conquer anything. I feel like what most superhero movies do, and it's not a bad thing, but most superheroes, including Superman, who's supposed to be the strongest superhero of all, even he has weaknesses. The issue is that Saitama doesn't have any weaknesses at all. His weaknesses are pretty much his finances. Although it's a very interesting direction and plot, because it shows the life of someone who has no boundaries, whose sky is their limits, right? Which I find really interesting, and I guess that's what made the show really enjoyable. It's just what's he gonna do next? And you always expect Saitama to win, and which he does. But yeah, in contrast to some of the shows that we reviewed on this channel, One Punch Man actually has a dynamic storyline, which I believe stays true to its manga form. So there's plenty of character development happening, especially with the man behind the House of Evolutions, and I like it. I think that's most of my notes. Overall, I loved it. I'm gonna watch season 2 one day, maybe today.
I want to go back to the design thing. that you mentioned. Saitama's like simple design is like, it's ingenious because it's like a super contrast with like literally everybody else. Everyone else is like super over designed and has like super extreme backstories. Like Genos is like from a village that got blown up by a cyborg, and he spent like 2 years trying to find a cyborg, and he's got, every time he like throws an attack, it's like some kind of super complicated explosion or something.
Yeah.
And Saitama is basically just the opposite of that. He was like an ordinary salaryman that wanted to do the right thing and couldn't really get shit done, and so he just dedicated himself to one thing and he got good at it. That's definitely like one thing that I really like about the show. It's not like, at least this first season, it's not like super complicated, and the rest of it isn't really complicated either. But like, I guess to get to the human aspect of it, we have to learn that Saitama is like too strong for his own good. Like he can't really, not that he can't relate with people anymore, but like he slowly feels his humanity slipping away. My prediction is that by the time the series ends, Saitama is probably going to become the bad guy or something like that. Hopefully that's wrong because I really like him.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to read straight from my note about like, what about Saitama, I guess. It says, Saitama is a character that has unimaginable physical prowess to the point that nothing can hurt him anymore. This has caused him to become bored in life, and as a result, he feels he's losing what makes him human. In day-to-day life, Saitama is pretty dumb, broke, and lazy. Saitama's true heroism is in making the hard decisions, in making the hard decisions to go against what he wants in order to uplift and inspire others, which is what I guess makes him heroic. We see this on multiple occasions in this first season. Like, especially in the meteor, when the meteor hits and he destroys it, everyone gives him shit for it. And like, even the other heroes, like they try and use him as a scapegoat and like run him out of the business. But in the end, he kind of just like, he lets it happen, but he also chastises the people saying, no one else is gonna do anything. You would have all died if I hadn't stepped in. And even like the Moomin Rider situation where he put himself on the line, or like what he wanted to be like famous and get recognition, he put all of that on the line just so that people could still have faith in people like Genos or Moomin Rider, and even in like the hero association in general, just so that the public image of the association is still okay. He put his own goals behind for that, which put a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
Like that Moomin Rider scene is really good. I like it a lot. Do you want me to go into like the production aspects?
Yeah, I would like to know. I haven't really heard much about the production, haven't done thorough research on it, so I'd like to hear.
Originally, this series was created by the author named One, and it started as a webcomic in 2009. And part of the reason that this show's come up was like such a big deal was that the original author's artwork was terrible. Like the guy did not know how to draw.
Oh, this is what it looked like in the past, huh?
Yes, that's what the original creator's artwork looks like.
Wow. It looks like a 13-year-old drew it.
I think the guy was like 21 when he drew it.
Oh, wow. Okay. How he has grown from this.
However, that comic got so much traction online that eventually the big company that like does all of the like, it's called Shonen Jump basically. It's like a very popular manga publisher, and a lot of like the mainstream manga and anime that people know are published from that company. So eventually got the attention of that company, as well as the new artist whose artwork you've seen, Yusuke Murata. He was a fan of the original webcomic because the story was so good, and basically they made a deal. The company, the original author, and Yusuke Murata, they all made a deal to like work together and get this story out. So that's how we got the new One Punch Man manga, and the anime is based off of that manga, basically. So Yusuke Murata already had the storyboards for everything, and he already had the story, so he pretty much had free reign to do whatever the fuck he wanted, like art-wise, when it came to this new manga. And so in 2015, I want to say? Yeah, 2015, the anime, it came out from a studio called Madhouse. Studio Madhouse is like one of the top in the industry. They are a big deal. I'm gonna put on screen some of the anime that they worked on. So this show was like set up to start from the beginning. And like some of the people that worked on this, we've got, well, on our watch list, we've got a couple shows which also have like really good animation. Some of the people who worked on them worked on this. And I'll say it when we get to those shows. Basically, this show is star-studded when it comes to animators. However, there is a caveat to this. the first season was so like critically acclaimed that the second season kind of was doomed to fail. Like the story is still really good, and the animation in season 2 is like a massive downgrade from season 1. Not that it's bad, but like you can definitely see the difference. It's a lot more stiffer and it's not as detailed, but it makes up for that for like the story. Season 2 has more of a serialized story that builds off of season 1, and it has like its own shit that's happening as well. And season 3 is gonna build off of that. But it's been, what year is it? It's 2024 right now, as of this recording. It's almost been 10 years since the first season came out. We haven't even gotten a season 3 yet. And season 2 came out in January of 2019, I want to say. So about almost 4 years after the first season came out. There was a lot of like development hell that went on with the second season.
I see.
And then in between the second and third season, I think the IP has changed studios maybe once or twice. And then it was only, I think it was like 4 months ago that we got like an actual trailer for season 3 that like said, oh yeah, it's coming out soon. Most people think that it's gonna come out next year. It was meant to come out last October, I think, and it got pushed back. So we don't really know when it's gonna happen. We just know it's gonna happen, but we don't know when.
So they're in the limbo right now. Speaking of like animation and stuff, before we started recording the episode, I was talking to Nick about like some funny things that I managed to capture while I was pausing the frames. While watching One Punch Man was analyze animation, because that's kind of what I also want to do. So I was like looking at, I don't recall which episode it was, but it was where Tornado was fighting the dinosaur in the very beginning. And I was analyzing how fast she was going when she was flying toward the dinosaur pretty quickly. You only saw her for 2 frames up close before she was far away. But like one of those 2 frames I found very funny. Let's just say someone at the animation department had a lot of fun just drawing that frame.
They got hired to just draw that singular frame.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be very honest. Like I was considering this is gonna sound stupid, but like I googled how old Tornado was. Because I was concerned whether it was inappropriate to talk about it in the episode. But yeah, she's 28, guys. Don't worry. It made me realize not just that particular frame, but also most of the show featuring naked people. Like, what was his name? Puri Prisoner. And at some point, Saitama was naked when he managed to take out the mosquito lady. And also, I guess like as a trope of most anime media is that most like male figures look feminine or have feminine characteristics. What I was thinking mostly was that businessman's bodyguard, because like at first I thought it was a not it. What am I talking about? I thought he was a she.
Oh, Sonic.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite character in the show?
Oh, I was gonna ask you the same question actually. I've been like thinking really hard ever since I finished season 1, and like it's gotta be either Saitama himself, Moomin Rider, the old guy.
Oh, Silverfang.
Yeah, Silverfang. That's what it was. I really like these characters. I guess it's because of their personality, and it's not because of their like particular role in the film. It's just like their characteristics is what resonates with me the most.
I really like Puri Prisoner. Puri Prisoner might be my favorite character in season 1 besides Saitama. There's a character that gets well, I guess he was introduced in this season, but he doesn't really have that much of a prominent role. His name is Zombie Man. Later in the show, he is like chef's kiss. He's like, I don't know. He's like very, I won't say he's like the most important character, but he's definitely very interesting. I can tell you this. It's not like super spoilers, but eventually when season 3 comes out, we are gonna get spend a lot more time with like the S-class heroes. Even like, cause in this first season, they introduced like the class system and like the ranking system of the heroes and stuff. The show goes into a lot more development of that system and like the flaws and stuff of it. And even in like the second season, there's a lot of like moral questions about like who has the right to be considered a monster. Is the Hero Association really doing the right thing? It goes into like a lot of that type of stuff. Very deep philosophical stuff,
Yeah, the philosophy. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it still has like its comedy elements. The show is like a comedy first and foremost, but I think that's what I like about I think that's the type of show that I like the most. It's mainly a comedy, but it still like dives into those deeper elements when it's time, and it knows when to get serious.
That's what I also like about this show. I feel like the comedy elements were executed perfectly. Well, not perfectly, but at their best, right? They're good. And the show knew when to get serious. That's one of the points that I forgot to mention.
That final scene, well, not the final scene, in the final fight when, Saitama's fighting the alien, and then we find out that Saitama wasn't even he wasn't even trying hard against him. Even stuff like that that's meant to be like victorious or whatever, it has like the undertone of sadness, even like because you see his face is like blacked out in shadow and whatever, and he just walks away silently. Like little stuff like that is what definitely adds to the show a lot.
Yeah, it might sound odd of me saying this. Like I agree with everything you said, and there is like a level of relatability that I see in this show, and it's when Saitama gets ousted as a fraud and stuff. I kind of relate to that a bit, not because like I was condemned as a fraud, but because of bias, like how people perceive some information, how they process it in the brains, and how it turns out all wrong. I get that feeling sometimes. In particular, I make that mistake myself a lot, but it's just I find that relatable because you do a good thing, and it's not the matter of gaining enough credit for all the work you put in. It's just the matter of not having any wrong values get in your way, which unfortunately happens to Saitama, and it happens to everyone, I bet. But the show does a very good portrayal of how bias may appear, hindsight or not.
And Saitama is definitely strong for not letting his feelings get involved. It's his true strength, you might say.
Yeah.
He might be the One Punch Man, but no, I couldn't make that joke. I don't know.
Season 1 proves that Saitama isn't really impulsive. He does everything with consideration, especially like when he was fighting the seaweed monster. It's like, he was coming back from a shop and he's like, oh wait, I don't have any, I forgot to buy the stuff. Oh well, I could take out this enemy. He considered it, right? He at least considered it, not just, oh, enemy, die.
Yeah, he is kind of dumb as well, so he might not have realized it.
Yeah, he's pretty... He a little confused, but he got the spirit, in other words.
Another thing that I really like about this show is that, like, pretty much doing anything can turn you into a monster. What was that guy's name? There was a guy who turned into a car because he drove around too much. And then there was the crab guy who turned into a crab monster because he ate too much crab.
Oh man, I turned into a laptop because I play too many games.
There's someone that's close to that comes up later.
Honestly, I would fuck Tornado.
No comment.
So, actually, could you have you seen, well, you might have probably seen season 2. Could you give a bit of details, like maybe an outline of what season 2 will go through?
So season 2 starts off pretty much right after season 1. Basically, the city that gets destroyed, it's not fixed, but it's kind of repurposed, I guess. The first half is the Hero Association trying to manage their heroes and do quality control a little bit, especially because they mentioned that all of the monsters appearing in season 1 is very unusual. There's more appearing than there's meant to be. And they mention about a month that seaweed monster you were talking about. He kind of foreshadows some events that are going to happen in season 2 and are going to get carried through in season 3. And we get to know more about an S-class hero, a very particular S-class hero in season 2 that Saitama becomes friends with. We get some more insights about Tornado. We get a new villain. He is a very good villain. I'm going to put some high expectations on him now because pretty much what season 2 is, the story arc that season 2 follows, it got cut off at the end of the first act. So season 2 is more a setup season than fully fledged storyline, because the story arc that is based off is long, really flipping long. If you were to watch when season 3 comes out, the best thing to do would be to binge season 2 and 3, because you'll get everything all at once. There's no missing pieces, whatever. That's all I can really say without going into too much spoilers. Just lower your expectations a little bit animation wise. It's a bit stiffer.
I see. Well, that's fair.
I think this show is definitely one where once you finish watching, I definitely recommend the manga. The manga, I mean, obviously it's further ahead, but you also get the quality art and the quality story. So
I see. Yeah, one day I'm gonna get the mangas as well. But you know what's for certain? That comment I made about Tornado kind of makes me look like a sex addict.
Kind of does. That's the thing you want to do.